All right, today we're getting into the origin story of a character named Wob. And look, this isn't just some simple backstory. It's a raw, gut-wrenching story of survival. It's about how someone is forged in a world that is literally designed to break them. So let's just dive right in and see how this all unfolds. So let's start with this quote. I watched his soul fold up on itself like a closing door. Wow. I mean, just picture that. A man watching his grandson get taken away, and his whole being just collapses. It's this one devastating moment that really sets the stage for the world Wob was born into. A world where, being human is a luxury most people just can't afford. Okay, so where does Wob's story actually begin? Well, it starts right in the middle of a city that's just rotting from the inside out. And this isn't just some random decay. There's a systematic campaign going on to isolate and, well, remove indigenous people. And you have to understand, this was a calculated breakdown of society. This wasn't just random chaos, no way. It was a deliberate strategy. You've got military shuttles creating this really visible class system. Snitching, it became a full-blown cottage industry. It got so bad that people would report a Swedish girl just for wearing a braid. And when the phones and cell service were cut, that wasn't an accident. It was a tool, a weapon to, quote, stunt the growth of community. Even the food banks, the one place you'd think would be a sanctuary, they became traps. And right here, this huge societal collapse becomes brutally personal. For Wob, who's only 10 years old, this isn't some abstract political thing. It's real. It's losing her home in a fire and then having to hide in a dumpster to avoid the recruiters, the so-called school staff, who are coming specifically for the indigenous kids. But even in a landscape this bleak, Wob manages to find a purpose. And it's born from something she already loved to do: running. That skill, that passion, it literally becomes her lifeline. And this is where you see this fascinating transformation. On one hand, running is just pure personal joy. She calls it her drink, says she was addicted to it. But then, on the other hand, that exact same passion, that same feeling, it becomes currency. It gets monetized for the most basic things you can imagine: a tin of soup, a loaf of bread. Her gift becomes her trade. Think about what that means. In a world where she was constantly being threatened, constantly objectified, being a runner gave her a whole new identity. Suddenly, she was in demand. She was valued for her skill, for her speed, and not just for what was, as she says, under her PJs. It was this brief but incredibly powerful moment of having some control over her own life. But of course, in a world like this, any moment of empowerment is incredibly fragile. And a simple job, something that looks like easy money, well, that's what becomes the turning point, the moment that changes absolutely everything. And when you look back, the red flags they were everywhere. The person who offered her the job, a known opiate user from her mom's circle. The payment? Danishes, paid up front. A luxury like that was just too good to be true. And then the guards, two guys with real, actual baseball bats, not just some makeshift clubs. Each little detail was another piece of this meticulously laid trap. And it all leads to this chilling reveal. The envelope she was risking her life to deliver was completely empty. So this is it. This is the moment her brief period of control comes to a brutal, calculated end. What happens next isn't just random violence. No, it's a targeted act. It was designed specifically to destroy her. And here's the motive just laid bare. It was business. That's all it was. Wob was competition. Her prices, a tin of food for a run, were undercutting a more organized, much more violent operation. So this wasn't random. It was basically a corporate takedown, just executed with this visceral, dehumanizing hatred. The job was never about delivering a message. The job was to deliver her. The whole thing was a setup, a decoy. She wasn't the messenger. She was the package. And in that moment, the trap springs. The realization hits. And yeah, that's really all that's left to say. 2 days. 2 days in that freezer. The story doesn't spell out exactly what happened, but it doesn't have to. That simple, horrifying statement, it tells you everything you need to know about the ordeal she went through. The aftermath is just devastating, total. Her body is scarred for life. Her mother, the one person you think would be a refuge, is lost in her own addiction and offers zero comfort. And that joy, that agency she found in running, it's gone, replaced by hiding. So in the end, her final act isn't really one of defeat, it's an escape. She just walks away from all of it, into the bush, gone. So that brings up a really important question. Why is this story even being told? And who is listening? Because this isn't just about dredging up a painful memory. No, this is a lesson being passed down. It turns out a young girl, Riri, has been listening to the whole thing, and her questions, they are just heartbreaking. She immediately makes the connection between Wob's personal trauma and the bigger systemic violence against their people, the murderers from the government. She's asking, did those bad guys work with the murderers? And why do they murder us slow? She gets it. She's asking, are they all connected? Why is this happening to us? And that brings us to the final and maybe the most essential point of all this. The person telling the story, Mig, he doesn't say, time to hear what happened, or time to listen to a memory. He says, come, daughter, time to hear story, with a capital S. He's reframing Wabi's entire traumatic past into something vital, something essential, a tool for survival. This story is a lesson in how the world really works, who you can trust, and what dangers are out there. It's so much more than a story about what was, it's a shield for what's still to come.